sparked it initially was being in juvenile hall and around individuals who had done far worse than I've done, and being in that atmosphere of people who have literally nothing to lose really frightened me in a whole new sense of that these individuals that I'm around, this is going to be their life. I don't want that to be mine. And I told myself when I was there that I don't know what it's going to take, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to get myself out of this path and onto a better one.
Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys, the podcast of great conversations with men. I'm your host, Chris Foster, and we're going to explore how we wear this beautiful and confusing mantle of manhood in the 21st century. Look, I get it. In public life, a lot of men are knuckleheads. But in private life, we can be thoughtful and we can be reflective if we have the right conversation, if we feel comfortable talking about our story. And we all have a great story to tell. And we can all learn from those stories. We can learn about who we've been, who we are, and who we want to be. And that's why we're going to have this conversation, so we can learn from other men just like us. And in this episode, we're going to talk with my friend Josh. I've never talked with a young man who's gone through the foster system before. And boy, did he go through the system. Bounced around at different places, was actually homeless for a while, but still managed to pull himself out to the place where he can make his own decisions about his own life. And he's having a great life so far. He's getting off to a fantastic start, and that's because of him. He's incredible. You're going to love this. Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys. Well, all right. Well, Josh Bringhurst, welcome in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am 25 years young. I just recently graduated with my master's in business analytics. I am currently an accountant. I have a business on the side doing digital marketing. I am in a committed relationship. Just recently moved back to San Diego and just experiencing a little bit more about my life here in my hometown on my own terms.
I love that. I love the idea of experiencing your hometown on your own terms. As an adult coming back into the city where you grew up in, how do you see San Diego differently as an adult versus a child? And this is the place that you choose to be versus the place you were born into.
Yeah, I would say it's prettier than I remember. Coming from the East Coast in Connecticut to San Diego, the weather's a lot nicer, especially with it being, 70 degrees today. Yeah, I mean, I'm able to go to these spaces that I grew up around and put a new perspective on it, being able to enjoy it, and just really be able to create a new outlook on it than what it was given when I was younger.
That's so interesting that you're older as a young adult, you feel, is it because you have more agency in your life that you have a different perspective of the city?
So I spent most of my life going in and out of the foster system. So I spent my high school years going through 9 different high schools and 7 different placements, ranging from foster homes, group homes, and even juvenile hall. And when I moved to Connecticut, I was 18 years old, homeless in Balboa Park. Moved to Connecticut, went to school, kind of figured my stuff out for the most part, as much as a 20-something-year-old can figure out. And moving back here now, being able to drive where I wish, eat what I please, and do the things that I didn't get to experience when I was younger now.
Yeah, and like you said, on your own terms, the fact that, first of all, congratulations on your master's.
Thank you.
And the fact that you can control and begin your own career on your own terms, coming back to San Diego, it must feel like you have a sense of self-power, self-agency that you didn't have before, and that you can kind of start controlling your own life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I didn't know that you were in foster care with 9 different, placements in various homes. How does that actually work? And forgive me for my ignorance in terms of how the foster system works. How is it that you went from different home to different home?
I Some of it was self-inflicting. I wasn't the, easiest individual to get along with. Obviously, so because of, the atmosphere I was coming from and the atmosphere that I was now in, coming from an abusive home where there
Mm.
was neglect, emotional abuse, different forms of torture, to going into an atmosphere where I know nobody and my life becomes this revolving door of lawyers and social workers and county workers and staff members to therapists, psychiatrists, um, having walls up. And it was fighting and talking back, refusing to do what the court requested, going to therapy. Good
Mm-hmm.
luck pushing a 15-year-old to talk about things that they don't really want to talk about.
Sure.
I'm sure, having kids is probably the same way, getting them to talk about their feelings from high school. It was very similar.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
Um,
you know, it's very tough for teenagers and especially young men to feel comfortable talking about their feelings, yet at the same
yeah.
time, how do you express all that anger and frustration except
Mhm.
for doing what you do?
Yeah, I wrestled. I was very good at wrestling, football, baseball, jiu-jitsu, and that definitely built an ego for me.
Mm.
And I wasn't my when I was younger, my belief wasn't to let them start it. I was the one who started and finished it. So yeah, that
Well,
was
but so Josh, that actually is really interesting. That's a very honest phrase where you said you weren't going to let someone else start it. I I I completely understand that because in your life, other people were starting things for you that you couldn't
yeah.
control.
Yeah, correct. I finally was in an atmosphere where I was in control and kind of gave myself this form of power. Um,
Sure.
so, and I felt bigger than in those moments because of what I knew I was capable of doing. And um, so,
But that makes a lot of sense to me, Josh. I think that that's a natural human thing. It's a natural male thing too. That if you're feeling small, not from your own volition, but because of things that people are doing to you that you can't control, that you need to counter that by creating moments where you can feel big and strong and power and to be in control of yourself.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, in those atmospheres, you're growing up in the system. Honestly, I had everything laid out for me, where I was sleeping, what I was eating, what I was allowed to drink, um, where I couldn't go, couldn't hang out with friends after school, had to go straight back home in an environment where there's other youth just like me, um, high strung with loads of emotion, ready to be gun ho at any given moment. Um, just because of all their background and the things that they were going through, and it's all no fault to their own. So
Yeah, that does make sense. So I recently read a book called Demon Copperhead. Are you familiar with that?
no,
It's by a woman named Barbara Kingsolver. So she lives in Appalachia, and she saw the ravages of the opioid crisis through a lot of different communities.
mm,
And she was thinking about that, and she read a book called Dope Sick, which kind of chronicles this opioid crisis. But and it's a terrible terrible tragedy in our recent American history. But one of the stories that wasn't told was the stories of the orphans,
mm,
of all the kids whose parents couldn't make it. And so she wanted to write a book about them. And so she said, well, who's a model that I could think about? And the the king of writing about orphans in the classic sense is Charles Dickens, who wrote David Copperfield. So she said, now I have my model. So she wrote a book called Demon Copperhead, which is kind of a parallel story to David Copperfield, but it takes place in
Hmm.
Appalachia in the Kentucky, Tennessee area, and chronicles a young boy named Demon whose mother dies early, and father's had been died before he was born, and so he's put into what you called and what he called the system, capital
Hmm.
T, capital S, the system.
Yep.
And he's thrown in, and he has a
Hmm.
caseworker, and he is a lawyer, and he's got homes that he has to be sent to, and he has a revolving set of homes that he goes from one to the next. He also plays football. He also doesn't feel in control of his life. So what does he do? he's got to establish kind of some control. He starts. It's very tough because he has a very hard time being and feeling vulnerable because his whole core existence is feeling vulnerable.
Yeah.
Does that ring true?
Yeah. I don't know the term, but it hits the nail right on its head. It just that
Yeah.
hits close to home for sure. Yeah, I mean, just this when I was younger, I had this sense that being vulnerable was being weak, but it's reversed when you're able to be vulnerable and you're able to be in control of your emotions. That's power. Being able to have control, self-control, and an understanding of how you're feeling and what certain things make you feel. Um, that is something that I've learned that vulnerability doesn't necessarily mean weakness.
Right. And that the vulnerability, to your point about being in touch with your emotions, about how to think about them and unpack them, actually gives you a lot of power over those emotions.
Correct.
That's a very hard thing to learn when you're a youngster, I'll tell you that. Even when
Yeah.
you're older, even when you're older like me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still learning it. I'm still trying to understand it, but it's just taking one situation at a time and allowing yourself to go through the course of the emotions, the course of action, but not losing sight of what you set your journey out to be during that
Mhm.
process. Just being true to yourself and just really learning to live in the moment.
Yeah, that's a challenge, I would think, especially when you're younger in a group setting or a group home where you have so many distractions and so many kids who are all going through the same thing. I think it would be almost impossible to be able to get a read on your own emotions with so much input.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it the lack of input was definitely is what made it difficult, but on my end, the lack of reception. You know, you
Mm.
you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. In the same sense goes, you can set out to want to self-improve, but if you're not willing to listen to the cues and listen to what your therapist or your partner or your mentor has to say, then it's just a form of self-sabotage at that point.
Yeah. So you mentioned briefly now that you said you were at one point homeless living in Balboa Park. Um, what prompted that moment that to put you in a place where you literally were unhoused?
Yeah, oh man. So towards the end of my high school years, I reached out to an old teacher um, that had a pretty decent impact. And the reason why I gained this understanding for mathematics and um, this, like, I guess this, not quirk, not the right term, but like just this fad for numbers, understanding that
Hmm.
numbers are right and they're wrong, and there's no emotions attached to them. Now,
Right.
he had let me into his home and he was fostering me, and he ended up making a sexual advancement on me a few days
Ah,
after I turned 18. And instead of choosing to live
no.
there and stay in that atmosphere, I chose to leave.
Leave.
And
Uh,
I had been staying with a girl at the time, but that was very short lived given the atmosphere I was in, the emotions that I was going
Sure.
through. She was still living with her parents and just all these things. And for probably a solid 3.5 to 4 months, I was just hanging around Balboa Park, sleeping on a bench, living out of a suitcase. And
Goodness
eventually I reached out
gracious.
to my so called God family. And I say so called because they were just family friends of my biological parents, whom I thought were on my side. When it turns out I just kind of got stuck into that same like malicious cycle that I was experiencing in the system of
Mm,
verbal abuse and um, just being taken advantage of because I was getting help and assistance from the state for housing, and they were taking
mm.
advantage of that. So that's what I ended up going to from being homeless. And now, rather than just turning over and accepting it, I chose to call them out. I moved out, and this was 2020. I'm living on my own,
Mm.
and that's when I started college.
Right in COVID. That's
Right in,
astonishing.
right in COVID.
I'm so um, in awe of you being able to still pursue high school, graduate high school, and go to college in all that scenario and in those situations. What was it, Josh, that kept you focused on your future instead of wallowing in the what I would say would think to be a very frightening, uncertain present?
Yeah, that's a good question. What sparked it initially was being in juvenile hall and around individuals who had done far worse than I've done, and being in that atmosphere of people who have literally nothing to lose really frightened me in
Mm-hmm.
a whole new sense of that these individuals that I'm around, this is going to be their life. I don't want that to be mine. And I told myself when I was there that I don't know what it's going to take, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to get myself out of this path and onto a better one. And what really helped me with that was having my casa from a certain nonprofit that I volunteer for. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
Voices for Children. All right, we'll talk
Yep,
about that.
yep. And they gave me a casa. He held my education rights. He's a court appointed special advocate. And he came into my life really random just after getting out of juvenile hall. And it was the first time I had somebody who was consistent
Mm.
and somebody who chose to want to be there rather than having to be there. And you can, a foster youth is able to notice those differences right off the bat.
Yeah, I think that makes all the difference too. We have an innate human ability to sense somebody's intention.
Hmm.
And, even when you're young and you're not necessarily experienced to meet thousands of people, you still have that core understanding of if someone's on your side or if someone's just trying to, like you said, do it out of duty rather than commitment. And you mentioned that in a real, I think, important tone that this was the first person that you felt that was committed to you. Um, what was Did that give you hope that there were other people like that, or at the time was it just kind of this unicorn star that you had to hold on to?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that that was what it was in the beginning. I had this huge, what felt like Fort Knox impenetrable wall that
Of course, of
nobody
course.
could break down. And he was just able to do it through just being consistent and showing up. I told him not to show up to my wrestling matches, my baseball games, my football games, and he still did it. He showed up to my court hearings and he put me outside my comfort zone by teaching me how to advocate for myself in the courtroom. First, by showing gratitude and then expressing what it is that I need from those who are there to help me. And just showing me a different perspective and a different outlook, all through just subtle and slight gestures that I had no idea he was even doing.
That's wonderful. What a champion, right? And
Yeah.
it's such an important thing that there's a person in a life that can do that, right? That, and I think that we all need that person. And what's so interesting about your story, Josh, is that storyline of that person that helps somebody, that's in all those other stories. That's in David Copperfield. That's in Oliver Twist. That's in Demon Copperhead. There's a person that can come in to help you. Um, so now that you're older, you just mentioned the organization you volunteer for. I have to assume that the Voices for Children is the organization that helped you.
100%.
All right. So now, are you that person to some youngster?
No, no, I am not. Not yet, at least.
Because you're
I
pretty
am
young
a
to be that person for a youngster, right?
yeah.
A
I mean, I
teenager is pretty close to where you are.
yeah, no, 100%. It's just not even what 8, 7, 8 years ago.
Right.
I was a teenager. I mean, I still have teenage tendencies. I'm not gonna lie, but no. So what I do is I do things like this where I'm on a panel and I talk about my story and just explain a little bit about how my time in care and the effect that my CASA had on not only my time in care, but in my life
Mm-hmm.
post foster care. And I just talk about it. People will come in, sit, ask questions, and it's a place where I get a little vulnerable, in turn helping educate and bringing more awareness about the foster system and foster
Mm-hmm.
youth. Because there's this stigma on foster youth where they're just troubled, and it's not that they're troubled; they're stuck in a troubled atmosphere. And the only way I could put it is that kids, children, youth are in fight or flight mode. There's no in between. So either they're calm, relaxed, and they're put in a situation and they have to choose to whether they want to fight or they want to fly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so most kids choose to fight because it brings that control, it brings that power. Um, or they fly, which is the youth that choose to run away from everything, run away from homes, foster homes, group homes, even their own home, which is what I did when I was 14. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so there's just this unfortunate stigmatism on them that is just not true.
Right.
And
Doesn't seem to be accurate or fair. And
yeah,
and I think that the labeling doesn't help.
no,
I also think, right, and I also think that I think a lot of adults especially underestimate children. They underestimate their resiliency. They underestimate their awareness. They underestimate their ability to figure themselves out and the desire to figure themselves out. Right. I think there's a survival instinct in all of us that manifests itself differently. Right.
yeah,
I
yeah,
just even with you even though you were homeless, living out of a suitcase in Balboa Park, there was a survival instinct that said, I'm not going to go to juvie hall. I'm not going to be that guy that's in that place my whole life. Right. That was truly survival for you. It was existential.
hmm
And you managed to say, no, I'm off to college, even though it's COVID, I'm off to school. And I also think it was very smart of you to leave San Diego for college, right? To get out to someplace else.
yeah.
What was it like going to Connecticut?
Uh, Probably one of the scariest things that I had ever done. Um,
Scarier than being homeless.
I would have to say so, yes, because I'm away from everything that I know. When I say that in quotation marks, like everything that I've known.
Yeah.
And it's always just been a form of negativity. And it was probably one of the hardest decisions I had to make because I was leaving my two younger siblings behind, all of my family. Um, but I had to do what was best for me. And that was the best decision I could have made, because I met a family that was very sweet. and gave me an opportunity to go to school, and really involved. They were very involved in my life, and it was my ex-girlfriend's family who decided to really accept me for me and everything that I've grown to known, to then show me what it takes to be around a family oriented atmosphere, what it takes
Right.
to be dedicated to themselves and their family, and to know what it's like. I mean, it was the first time I was in an environment where I felt unconditional love, which is
Hmm.
in a whole new thing for youth, where I will definitely say that I was trying to be, I wouldn't say defiant, but really resilient to it. Like I didn't want it. And it's not that I didn't want it, I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Um, because it was new. And, you know, we would fight, and understanding that you can still fight with your family and come back and be fine the next day, because that's what family's about. You're going to fight, you're going to fight, love, you're going to hate each other at moments, and you're going to be happy with each other at moments. And, um, just having that whole new perspective, really helped me with different relationships in my life, my current one, my friendships, my work relationships, and creating new friendships and relationships.
That is a breathtakingly important lesson for you to learn at this young age. Commitment goes multiple ways, right? I can understand if you've never seen or experienced commitment towards you. And when you're a child, that's the first thing you need. You need, safety and security from your relationships and your parents and your environment, and that committed consistency. And if you don't have that, then you don't know necessarily how to commit to something else because you've never seen it. Right. And
Yeah.
how do I understand how to commit to a family? My effort energy into the building of a family when I've never experienced the energy flowing into me from a family.
Yeah.
It's a hard lesson to learn. Um, and I think for you to, at that age, to expose yourself a little bit and to realize that slowly you didn't have to fight all the time, that you could receive love and understand what that means, that's a breakthrough emotional moment for you.
100%. And I definitely have to give a lot of it to therapy. I've been going to therapy since I was 20.
Of
Um,
course.
and that has definitely been a huge part in being more accepting to new situations and scenarios such as that. Um, and I've just always told myself, what do I have to lose? You don't experience things without taking a little bit of risk. So, and life's been risky my entire upbringing. And once you have a little bit more control of what that risk is, it can be either it can either be restricting or the biggest breath of fresh air you've ever had.
And the latter, right? I mean, the idea to
Hmm.
control the risk, it means that yes, there's always going to be risk. There's physical risk, there's entrepreneurial risk, right? And
Yeah,
business risk. But the scariest risk of all is emotional risk, right? Putting your heart into something, not knowing if that's going to be returned. And that takes a lot of bravery, right? And to
yeah,
your earlier point that vulnerability, I understand it, especially as a young man. If you're vulnerable, you're weak. Whereas
hmm,
in reality, if you're vulnerable, that means you're open to risk, which means you're courageous and brave and strong,
correct, correct.
right? It's a really interesting place to go. Um, I had a thought on that. The one thing that uh, if you listen to multiple episodes of my podcast, you'll get this again. But I like to read about Norse mythology, and there's the Snorri was an Icelandic scholar in the 1100s, and he translated all the oral stories into Latin because they'd never written them down, right? So he translated them all. And one story which really struck with me is Odin, the All Father, the leader of the Aesir gods, was walking on Earth as he does all the time. And he realized when he's looking at different people and different, magic in the world, he says there's one, the most powerful magic word of all is help, because you can give it, but also importantly, you have to receive it.
Hmm.
Right? You have to be strong and courageous enough to receive help and receive love. I think that for you, just even in the last 8 years, because you're 26 now, at 18, you embarked on this stage of your journey. Josh, it's been a hell of an 8 years.
Yeah, no, it definitely has. It's like night and day. I mean, being 18, angry at the world, having no control, to now being 25, and uh, feeling so empowered and in control, um, and still embarking on this journey
Sure.
and growing and trying to find new ways to grow through reading, journaling, working out, understanding a little bit more about what I do and don't like through how I'm spoken to, what I eat, and the people I choose to have in my life. Because I'm a firm believer of you are who you are surrounded by. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you are definitely a victim of your own community. If you choose to put yourself in atmospheres that are negative, filled with drugs, drinking, and negativity, that's who you're going to be. But if you choose to put yourself around people who are positive, like-minded, where they want knowledge and growth, that's who you're going to be. Um, and it's a hard perspective to change, and it's a hard how do I put it? It's a hard mindset shift.
We'll be right back. It is, and I applaud you at 25 being able to make that shift yourself, and I understand and again applaud you for feeling empowered, that you do have agency. The one thing that you strike me, and we've known each other for about 30 minutes and 5 seconds, but you really strike me as someone now, Josh, who is focused on not just self improvement, but focused on your own agency, that you can control your life, that you actually can write the chapters of your own story. That's no one's going to be writing it for you, that you're going to write your own scripts. And I think that's really strong. And what I also think is interesting is that there's been a lot of talk in the media about young men in their early to mid 20s, and this they're floating around, they're lost and the like. You had all of the excuses to be part of that lost generation, yet you're not. You're very focused. You're very aware of who you are and what you want to be. You're learning more about who you are and what you like and what you don't like. Creating these things, these columns of these are the things that describe me. These are the things that don't describe me, or that I don't want, right, to be
Yeah.
describing me, right? Um, do you have conversations with other kids your age? I shouldn't say kids, young men your age, about direction and focus and where they want to head, especially considering your background?
Yeah. I mean, through Voices for Children, we're working on recruiting more panelists because my story can only be so relevant for so long, right? So trying to find youth to come and train and mentor and get them to want to learn a little bit more about self advocacy and advocating
Mm-hmm.
for others, uh, to being at the gym and, seeing a group of young men working out for the very first time, and you can very well tell, to go in and just introducing, just be like, hey, looks like you guys need some help. I don't want you guys to be injured. To just people like I have somebody you can talk to, and being that person that people refer to talk to me,
Mm-hmm.
and just being open and honest the same way being open and honest here and vulnerable is being that same way with them, and just being genuine. I mean, just being genuine goes even further than just having a simple conversation. Um, just because there's a definitely I've found there's a lot of individuals who just flaunt themselves out.
Mm,
Just through conversation, you just find it's like, nope, that's not okay. Just through their actions and their perception. But yeah, just going and being curious with people.
yeah, I have found that there are so many different ways to think about the world, and when I talk to other men who are just seemingly to process what they're going through, I've got a lot more empathy and better understanding that everyone's going through stuff and they're all going through these things. And I think now, though, there are so many headwinds, seeming headwinds that are facing this younger generation. However, you seem to be more focused of on what you can control versus what you can't control. So I guess a question for you is, what have you learned over just this last year that surprised you about yourself that you did like or that you didn't like?
Hmm. Yeah, I've always felt that I could be impatient and short tempered, and I've found that that's actually not the case.
Hmm.
Um, I am patient. I am understanding. What I am not is tolerable of um, the how do I put it? I just don't tolerate repetitive action when there has been like a simple request of, hey, don't do this, or hey, I don't like this. And
Mm-hmm.
that just comes with it, just a simple self-respect factor. And I've learned more about how to respect myself and set those boundaries, and that it is capable. You are capable of doing that without hurting or losing people.
Right. Yeah, that's also a nuanced thought, right? That you can create a boundary of things that are comfortable or uncomfortable. And that doesn't mean that other person is bad, or that doesn't mean you have to damage that relationship. These are just the ways in which you'll engage with this person or these people or this environment. Um, as you start thinking about now, you said you are an accountant. Congratulations on that. And you've got a side hustle on being a digital marketer. And you also volunteer for Voices of Children. Seems to me that you're blending things that are necessary and also meaningful. Necessary in terms of a career, meaningful in terms of the organization. As you do you see it that way, or are you just kind of pursuing the things that you're most interested in?
Um, my journey is going to be long, um, and it's not a negative sense. It's going to be long. It's going to
Correct.
be beautiful. It's going to be powerful. It's going to be impactful, as it already has been. I would like to be a CFO in the next 5 to 8 years for a large organization, to hopefully being an executive for a Fortune 500 company. Um, and I mean, that's within reaching distance, but that's some time away because I still have a lot of skills to develop. And
Sure.
I am utilizing my journey and my story to formulate those necessary skills and demeanor and skills. I don't know if I said skills already, but uh, to get there. And I'm utilizing the entrepreneurial side with my side hustle to go and find new clients, to go find new ways to learn about different atmospheres in the marketing realm, utilizing my story to help others while also finding a way to help someone who was once me,
Yeah.
where I'm able to, it's not about me, it's about them and those who may not know how to speak up or just simply can't. And pursuing something that is going to give me a stable setting. It's going to give
Right.
me a comfortable life, which is something I've never been able to understand until I had control of my life.
Right. No, that to me is that almost that response of your childhood, where your childhood was chaotic and uncertain, then in your adulthood to create stability, and certainty and prosperity, right?
Mm,
And what you can control with that. To me, that makes complete sense and is part of that arc of the journey, right? The part of that balance of the cosmic balance of your life is a stable, secure, certain adulthood. And
yeah.
by pursuing pursuing those that degree and the interest and the career path that you're in, I also think what struck me is that you talked about skills, and that's true. There are certain skills that a 32-year-old has that a 25-year-old just doesn't have because you haven't honed them, you haven't learned them
Hmm.
yet, right? The only way you learn them is by doing them, especially in the business environment, where you learn how to work, right? You learn what that actually means, right? And
Yeah.
and all the interactions, right, of levels up and levels down, managing up, managing across, all these various things, and you just learn them by experiencing them, by doing them. Um, are you finding that you have, uh, I should say, helpful mentors in the business environment?
I would say so. I have somebody who I met through my casa who has been a huge help with um, referring clients to me because
Oh,
she's
great.
also one of my clients. Um, and obviously I'm doing right by her because she's referring people, so that's great, right? But also telling me like, you need to be proactive in the atmosphere that you're in, constantly learning new skill sets,
Mm-hmm.
and giving me that opportunity to do so. I definitely feel that I could utilize an entrepreneurial mentor who can who understands the ways of the world as it is present. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that would be a big help with being able to understand a little bit more about how to grow a business, in comparison to when I first started. And I thought I was doing all the right things, and I was most definitely not. Looking for that golden ticket under all the wrong rocks, and I got my back to the direction that I should actually be going.
But you know what's so great though, Josh, is that truly you can say that with a smile and a laugh. The fact that now you can talk about honest mistakes that you wouldn't know about without feeling angry or defeated or frustrated. And you say it with a laugh, like, oh, that's kind of a living lesson, right? To me, that is a remarkable difference than probably what you would have experienced, 7 years ago,
Mm,
um, and in a completely different environment. The fact, right? I mean, it's to get to a place where you can laugh about your mistakes.
yeah.
I mean, that's a place.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't remember where I read this, but I read it within the last like 2 or so years, where you can't enjoy the sun without a little bit of clouds, because then you're just gonna dislike the sun, and
Right.
you're just gonna be looking for the clouds. Um, and I was listening to it was I was listening to a podcast um about stoicism, and I recall them stating something about um, life is going to be constantly filled with misery. You're going to be miserable at times, you're going to be happy at times. But if you can't smile and enjoy yourself and your journey through the miserable and very hard and difficult times, you aren't going to enjoy or know when you're enjoying a really good moment or those really good times. You can't enjoy the highs without the lows. You can't understand the lows without those highs, because then you never really know where you're at.
Hmm. I love that. So, are you reading "The Obstacle Is the Way"?
No, but it sounds like I need to.
I've got a list of stuff. The reason I mention it is because as soon as my ears have been perked up this entire time. But when you mentioned the Stoics, I've been reading about them. I've been reading
Oh,
about them, and then I'm reading Marcus Aurelius right now, his Meditations, and
yes.
I'm reading a book that is kind of called The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. And another
Hmm.
author, and where they take a quote and a prompt every day. So every day I'm kind of
Yeah.
reading about this. And to your point about a philosophical approach to life, it actually has made my life better on a daily basis. I've actually
Hmm.
to think about what this day is going to be and to think about the ebbs and the flows made me hang on to the challenging moments a little bit less, right? And maybe learn from those challenging moments instead of, getting all wound up about them. So I think it's wonderful that you're reading that, and I've got a whole heap of books to send you.
Oh,
Um,
that's perfect.
so okay, and you seem amenable to picking those things up and pick up
Yeah.
what other folks are putting down. So you've got some mentors in your professional life. That's excellent. And you're looking for mentors in an entrepreneurial life. And offline, I can help with that. And as you work with Voices for Children, you are in some ways a mentor to those new folks and learning how to be a mentor. What have you learned about mentorship that has surprised you?
You don't have to know everything.
Yes.
That's something that you're gonna come across things where you're like, wow, I really don't know the answer, but hey, let's go find it together. And just being able to embark on journeys with other people has been something that I have grown to enjoy, and learning
Mm.
a little bit more about others' hardships and also their prosperities through their journey. Um, I'm definitely a firm believer that, you're going to learn from your own mistakes, but it's a lot nicer when you get to learn from other people's mistakes. So,
Sometimes it's a lot faster if you can study other people's
correct.
mistakes and learn from them before you make those mistakes yourself.
Yep.
Have has this given you a different perspective of your childhood memories, kind of going through this own exploration and kind of, I'm not going to say turning a corner, but to me, you have a trajectory of your life. The impression I have is that the trajectory of your life right now is really on a positive, what I would call upward spiral. And upward spirals
Mhm.
to me are circular and they move in an upward direction and they're regenerative, right? You start moving up, the momentum carries it up, the momentum keeps carrying it up. And you think about the intention of what you want to do. You act towards your intention because you are creating this belief that you're going to reach those places and you know that's happening. So, hey, that's awesome for you. And then as you're going up on this upward spiral, do you ever look back in the past at some of those memories and experiences and see them in a different way?
Um, I see them from a less angered perspective.
Right.
Not as angry. I'm not. I wouldn't say disappointed. Um, I understand it's unfortunate, and that's kind of just how I view it. It's my childhood was unfortunate,
Yeah.
but who else but me? And I mean, it sounds prideful, but who else but me? Obviously, I went through those situations for a reason, to put myself in the position that I am now, um,
Mm-hmm.
to help advocate and bring power and to show it's possible. Getting out and breaking the cycle, going to school. I put myself through school. I've paid over $143,000 worth of student debt to go through to school.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
I thank you, thank you. Yep, there's
It's it's it's
there's pros and cons
remarkable.
to everything you do. Hmm.
Yeah, it's remarkable, and I guess that's where I kind of it wasn't a leading question, Josh, truly, but I was thinking that might be the answer because looking back now, to me, you're talking about your past not in a way that's full of self pity, not in a way
Hmm.
that is an excuse. You're looking at it as a place of that was unfortunate, but because of those situations, it's quote unquote made me the man I am today. But it is your own life, right? And so the
Yeah.
fact that you're able to take those experiences and not have them dominate your adult life and to create a
Hmm.
new adult life, maybe because of those experiences. And who knows, maybe your adult life wouldn't be on this path were it not for those experiences.
And I agree. I mean, I have known people where they've grown up in a family like setting that were very, very loving and nurturing and caring, and they're on very unfortunate paths that lead nowhere fun. Um,
Right.
you know, and honestly, it's my childhood and my upbringing and my journey is very motivating to me. Um, because there's not a single thing that can stop me. I am beyond resilient, and no matter what is thrown at me or how hard I get knocked down or how many steps I fall, I'm going to get back up and keep climbing. And that is something that I've learned and I've stayed true to, and that I've absolutely just grown to enjoying this journey, enjoying my story as I continue to build it and being able to share it with others. I mean, that has been one of the most impactful parts is knowing that I can help others through what I've gone through.
Absolutely. I think that that is a beautiful and remarkable way to transform unfortunate experiences literally into something positive and literally into something that can help other folks. And that, the idea that you have now created habits in your mind that are very hard to create, but and the idea that clearly you're an athlete, you lift weights, which takes discipline, repetitiveness, habit, and that if you create these mental models of your mind and creating these habits of this is how I'm going to think about this is how I'm going to think about this, that prepares you for upcoming challenges because you're going to have them like we all do,
Mm-hmm.
but it prepares you for future challenges knowing that you've overcome past challenges that would topple somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. I mean, today I had a relatively difficult time with, I was working on a project pertaining to budgets and I spent 2 hours doing something that I didn't need to do. And I became super frustrated and flustered with that situation. Um, and it kind of put a huge cloud over my entire day. And to the point where, just through this conversation, it helped me realize that it allowed me to understand that I spent those 2 hours learning more about budgets that I wouldn't have been able to know if I didn't do that. Um,
Sure.
learning where to look, how to create the formulas that pull from other pages for this specific um, tenant or property. It literally just now came to that realization. But
That's awesome. But see, this is
so
the thing, right? But this is the habit that you create. So I think that what you end up doing is, you know, and I'm not being a Pollyanna, every cloud is a silver lining, blah, blah, blah. But in actuality, in any challenging or stressful moment, you can learn about yourself that way. You can learn
mhm,
about how I handle that, why I handle it a certain way, and how I unpack my response and reaction to that, and what I can control in terms of my response and my reaction. The one thing you'll find with when you read more of the Stoics is that I say there's so many things you can't control, and you know this more than most anybody I know, right? In terms of growing up, you can control your environment. What you can control, though, is your mind. What you can control
mhm,
is your response. What you can control is how you react to situations. Now, when you're a young child and you have no models, you're not going to see appropriate, or you're so caught up in your emotions, you're not going to learn how to unpack that. But what you've learned is that you've learned the skill of being able to think about how you respond. And as you start building your own skill in the business environment, there's also a skill that you've already mastered of moving past your past.
mhm.
I don't know if you know that or not, but that's a tremendous skill.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the process of restarting my business. We had grown, gained some clients, and we tried to grow and utilize um, a service to help us grow faster. And on top of it, got just I drilled myself into so much debt
Mm,
through the business that it was killing me. And I filed for bankruptcy at 24 years old to get myself and give
mm,
myself that fresh start. And it was reading a book called Ego is the Enemy. And if you continue to say that I'm going to do this and I'm going to figure out without accepting a lending hand, um, you're just going to be a culprit of your own frustrations, your own angers, and your own animosity. And you're just going to be so consumed by your own feelings that you're not going to grow. You're not going to find this way to prosper. And it's okay to take help, like we were talking earlier. It's okay to take help, and sometimes it just takes swallowing that little bit of pride to say, "Hey,
uh-huh.
yep, I do need some help." And honestly, it was one of the best decisions I could have made. It got me out of so much credit card
That's
debt
wonderful.
and
That
loan
is
debt
that is
to get away
that is
from it.
wonderful.
Yep.
That is fantastic. And it's so interesting now that happened twice now, right? Where you called him Mikasa, the receiving help to help you kind of propel yourself, learning that again and saying, I need more help, because you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be 25 and saddled with that kind of debt, because that will cripple you
Mm-hmm.
for a decade. So that was the
Yeah.
smart thing to do. Again, that was that survival instinct that kicked in, but you were open and receptive and vulnerable enough to ask for help. And isn't
Yeah.
that interesting that that's the moment where you're able to move your life forward, is when you get help.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not like, and I think people don't understand the definition of help. It's not, help doesn't have your answer. It's going to give you a different direction on what can help you get out of that situation, not
Mm-hmm.
get you out of that situation. It's a form of assistance, not a complete control answer to all your problems, which I feel is what a lot of people look for when they ask for help. Um, I definitely have issues with that with some people in my life where they ask for help and I give them advice on how or what direction they need to look in, and that's, they don't like it. It's like, listen, this is what I have to offer, and this is how I can help. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Because in the end of the day, you've got to do it yourself. And in fact, especially when you're raising kids, you don't want to do everything for them. You want to assist, but they learn how to
mhm,
do the things themselves, because that's the only way you actually learn, is by doing it and by
correct.
learning it yourself. And also that builds that sense of empowerment and that sense of control and agency, and that idea that you can control your own life. I think that, again, that helped you to say, okay, you know what, I'll declare bankruptcy, not a problem, no harm, no foul, because that's a
Hmm.
great choice for me right now, and now I can move my life forward where otherwise I wouldn't have been able to. That's astonishing.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Well, Joshua, I am admire you greatly. I am so grateful that you wanted to spend some time with me and have this chat. And the last question that I have of all my guests is, who is someone that you know that I don't know that you think I should know?
Um, oh gosh, there's a few people that come to mind, but number one obviously is my casa, who's now my
Okay.
mentor. He's he's worn so many different hats for me, being an advocate, my casa, being
Mm-hmm.
a best friend, being a father, being a mentor, being that really big pain in the side when you don't want it, but you
But
need
you
it.
need it.
Yep. He is a very well successful man, but one of the most heartless. Nope, I don't think heartless was the right term, but
Okay.
um, he's the most selfless person that I know.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and he does everything with a smile on his face. He's always brings joy, and he's just the kind of guy who you can have 100 people quiet in the room, and suddenly those 100 people are just talking to each other or arguing with each other. Just depends on the mood he's in. But
Yeah. That's awesome.
no,
What a good man. What a great
yeah,
man.
he's a guy that I definitely contribute a lot to, and I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for his impact. And I don't think he knows or understand where my life would have gone if it wasn't for his presence.
It's wonderful. That's a wonderful testament of to what I would consider to be real manly virtue, right? Real manly mentorship and helping another young man go through the wilderness, because we all have these journeys, and all of us at some time go into the wilderness. And the question is, can you come out of the wilderness? And if you come out of the wilderness, you're transformed. That's just in literature and in life. And then to have that mentor, right? So the hero's journey has this very specific structure to it. There's the hero, there's the villain, there's the mentor, there's the journey, and there's a transformation in every story throughout the history of the world, in any culture. And what I love about your story is that you clearly had the villains in your life, but that you found your mentor. And that mentor really helped you go through your journey and finally the transformation into the adult Joshua that's on his upward spiral. It's wonderful.
Yeah, 100%. And just having that male role model is definitely something that was needed, to remove myself from not understanding how to control my emotions and not follow this path of our modern toxic masculinity,
Right.
and just having that simple respect for others and that self-respect, first and foremost. And, there's people that I can contribute to for teaching me how to sacrifice. You may not like it, but you need to do it. And there's people that I can talk to about what it's like how to receive love, even when it's tough love, and what it's like how to understand to be a partner. Because I didn't necessarily have that growing up.
Yeah.
So, I would say that even though I didn't have parents, I had individuals who gave me those
That's
outlooks
wonderful.
and those lessons.
Yeah.
So
that's wonderful. And then as you start getting older, you can become that mentor to somebody else. You can be that person, that change agent in another young man's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to that day, but it's not a day that I am looking for. It's a day that'll just present itself when the time comes.
I agree with you completely. That's how the universe works. That's wonderful.
Correct. Yep, the laws of attraction.
That is the laws of attraction. That is true. Well, Josh, you are wonderful. And I thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity.
You bet. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You as well.
Hello, my stars. Josh Bringhurst. Let's go. Come on. What a fantastic conversation. What a remarkable young man. Gosh, he's done a heck of a lot of living in his short years. And what an astonishing and applaudable transformation that he's had in the last 8 years. Right? It's just 8 years, but he's completely changed the trajectory of his whole life. And he did that. He had some help, of course, like we all need, right? The most powerful magic word and all. But alongside the help, he figured out that he was going to change his mindset. He was going to create the path of his own life. He was going to find that power himself, even though he was disempowered as a youth. Man, so what did I learn from Josh? I learned from Josh that we've got a lot more strength than we might think. And when things get bad, we can still move forward and focus on what we want to do for our own survival and our own best interests. And we can get through those tough times and maybe open our hearts for some help from other people when we need it most. Man, This guy's incredible, and he's going to have a fantastic, strong life, and he will overcome future obstacles because of what he was able to do in this part of his youth, in this part of his young adulthood. Yeah, I love it. I'm really appreciative of that conversation, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation too. I hope you joined the conversation. Visit menfolkjourneys.com. I'd love to have a yik yak with you and about how you overcome challenges and the kernels of your resiliency as well. Thanks for listening. Word bit Falarid.